Welcome, everyone who is here for our Parenting Through Cancer webinar on the sandwich generation, balancing cancer, children, and aging parents. A little bit first about Brightspot if you're new to us. We are a community of parents who are diagnosed with cancer while pregnant or raising young children. And we support parents with any cancer diagnosis, any stage, living anywhere in the United States. And we support partners and kids as well as the parent with cancer. Our mission is to empower parents with education and information to support kids and also provide community because it can be very isolating to be going through a cancer diagnosis while raising young children. We have many different programs, including our free book program called Bright Reads. We have a curated art box called Brightbox, a small financial grant. We have virtual support groups, connections for kids, webinars, and wellness activities. So, sort of the things like you see today. We have some art workshops coming up. We do family resource navigation, and we have a plethora of web resources that are free and downloadable if you go to our website. Bringing your attention to our next event of our Parenting Through Cancer series, which is Parenting Through and Beyond Cancer. And we will be hosting a parent panel talking about survivorship. And that will be on Tuesday, May 26th. And that's in partnership with Stupid Cancer. For parents who are navigating metastatic disease, we are partnering with Triage Cancer for this new program. We're really excited about it. Part of this is a webinar series, so you'll see here 4 different webinars that we're doing specific to the experience of parenting with metastatic cancer. And then we have some curated educational materials and resources. Scan that QR code if you would like to learn more. If you want to engage in today's webinar, if you have questions, go ahead and type that into the Q&A. You can check anonymous if you want it to be anonymous. We're going to hold all of the questions until the end, but if you're like me, I forget things. So I invite you to just go ahead and type it in whenever you have the thought or question, and then it's already there for when we get to the Q&A. We will send out a survey about today's webinar, and I'm going to thank you ahead of time for completing it. It's very short. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes, and it just helps us to know what works and what things you want to see. So if you have other topics or ideas you'd like us to present on, let us know. We do want to thank ASI, who is sponsoring this webinar today. The webinar is being recorded, so if you need to step away at any point, if you miss out on something, don't worry. We will send you a link to the recording in the follow-up email tomorrow. It will eventually live on our website, in our resource library. Follow us on Instagram, where we post about new programs, events, and resources. And now on to Meredith, who I'm really excited to have. Meredith is a very cool human, and I'm excited that I got connected with her a few years ago as part of AOSW, where we co-authored a chapter in an oncology handbook, and we actually talked about the sandwich generation and what that was like. So that when we were talking about finding a speaker, I knew exactly who to tap for it. But Meredith is a licensed clinical social worker with over 15 years of experience supporting individuals and families affected by cancer. Her clinical focus includes working with parents diagnosed with cancer, with particular emphasis on family communication and interventions that address the needs of both patients and their children. Meredith is currently president of the Association of Oncology Social Workers and an oncology social worker at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. So excited to have you, Meredith. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and I'll let you get to your slides.
Thank you. And I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Slideshow from the beginning. Okay. Can we see everything?
Yes.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Carissa. And I too am so um, excited for this collaboration. And I also feel quite honored that really such a phenomenal organization that supports a population of cancer patients that is near and dear to my heart has asked me to be part of this webinar series. So truly, thank you so much. Um, thinking about this idea of sandwich generation and also balancing cancer along with small kids and aging parents can be incredibly complex. Um, when we think about cancer, oftentimes we think about the individual experience. Like when you go to your oncologist's office, I'm not sure how many of your oncologists like truly want to hear about your whole family, all the people that you're caring for. Many of us, many cancer patients are caring for children and aging parents at the same time. That can create a sense of feeling like you're never present anywhere. I wonder if anyone feels that way. Um, Today is about acknowledging that reality and thinking about how to care for yourself while also caring for so many others. Before we go further, I want to take a moment to pause together. Just notice your breath. No need to change anything. If it feels comfortable, you might even acknowledge yourself being here today. Taking time for yourself when so much is being asked of you is not always easy. I really am truly so glad that you're here and you're taking this time for yourself. When I made the slide, I was truly thinking of like, there's so many things a parent who's caring for young kids and also caring for older parents um, uh, handles on a daily basis. And then to get thrown with a cancer diagnosis is almost unimaginable. I can only imagine how exhausting. Um, so I thought this balance, this picture kind of showed how I was thinking about it and how I wanted to form this presentation. You've got all of the things here, cancer treatment, mental load, kids, spouse and partner needs, work responsibility, aging parents' needs, household responsibilities, financial and insurance stress, medical coordination. That could be a job in of itself. Emotional support for others. Who are the friends that have always counted on you for that emotional support? And of course, the unexpected crises and daily disruptions. And where are you in this? It oftentimes feels like this is so incredibly unbalanced. When you think about cancer, what's the heavy side? What takes up so much space? Treatment demands, parenting responsibilities, your partner's relationship, work, aging parents, household management, finances, insurance, care coordination, supporting everyone else emotionally. The light side, your own rest, your emotional needs, your recovery, your identity outside of illness, and also outside of all of these other roles. When we lay it out like this, it becomes pretty clear pretty quickly why so many people feel exhausted and stretched thin. I know that that's what so many of my patients who are parents in the sandwich generation talk to me about. It's not just one role, it's all of them, and they're all happening at the exact same time. And often, without realizing, you become the smallest piece of this equation. And it's not about doing anything wrong. This is what happens when someone is just holding too much. This is There's a significant difference of what makes this experience being in the sandwich generation and having cancer so incredibly complex. You have young children who require constant emotional, physical, and demands, and you're present. I imagine you feel pulled to be emotionally steady for your kids, even when you're exhausted or scared. Managing your kids' needs for closeness. I know that when kids feel like there might be stress in the home, they want to be even closer to mom or dad. They want to touch mom or dad, and that's difficult when you don't feel well. You just want to lie down. You just want to rest. You just want to be alone, but then you also want to be there for your kid. And then what comes with that is guilt. Guilt when you can't match your usual energy, how you play, how you engage. Um, you experience repeated interruptions to rest because children's needs certainly don't pause. They need meals, they need comfort. You didn't cut the chicken nuggets correctly. I don't like that type of ketchup. They're waking up in the middle of the night, they're coming into your bed. Um, and you're also holding your own fear while also noticing your children's distress or maybe some of their changes in behavior because of what's going on. And I imagine there's a part of you that feels torn between protecting them from worrying and also not having the space to fully process your own emotions. And then when we think about aging parents, um, it feels you feel sandwiched between needing to care for yourself and also being seen as the strong and competent one in your family. The emotional burden of watching your parents worry about your illness while you're also trying to cope and pulled into managing their stress, their logistics, their health concerns. It can be depleting, and experiencing guilt when you can't always be there for them. And then what your medical care takes up, the chronic exhaustion from not only the cancer treatment, but never fully stepping out of that caregiver and responsible adult role. Feeling fragmented, constantly shifting between parent and patient and adult child. Um, Many times these roles have no time for recovery. Loss of privacy around your own emotional experience, and reduced capacity for rest, emotional fatigue, and thinking about grief. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit more, but like grieving who you were before all of this happened. I want to remind you, there is nothing small about this. What can look manageable from the outside, from everyone else, is rarely ever manageable. For many people living with cancer and also parenting young children and caring for aging parents, the demands are continuous and also incredibly layered. Even when the individual task might seem ordinary, getting the kids to school, checking in on a parent, attending an appointment, the cumulative role is significant. There's a tendency, internally or even externally, to minimize this experience. Say, it's okay, it's just dinner. It's just a doctor's appointment. It's just a phone call. But in reality, all of these moments requires emotional energy and decision making, physical effort, and often pushing through this idea of pushing through the treatment side effects like fatigue, pain, or cognitive overload. I recently spoke to a parent who was newly diagnosed with breast cancer and had just gone through a double mastectomy. And her daughter's birthday kind of fell on like the first week that she had had her drains out. So for any of you who've had the mastectomy, like I know that that feels like a major milestone, like finally the drains are out. So she was feeling good. So she planned this big party where she gathered all her daughter's friends around for dinner at her own house and like really put on like a party that her daughter loved and truly appreciated. But she said she spent the next week in bed, absolutely exhausted and absolutely depleted. Um, and I think that happens often, and certainly like that's not the only time that will happen for her, I imagine, because it's incredibly difficult to hold all of these roles and then also take care of yourself during cancer. I think this is one of the most important slides in this presentation, although they're all important, but this is something that's incredibly important. I do with a lot of my patients is grieving what life used to feel like. When we think of grief, oftentimes we think of grieving something that's physical, a loved one, a pet. Um, but we can also grieve the life that we had before cancer. Cancer changes more than health. It changes the rhythm of daily life. And many people grieve the version of life where parenting felt more spontaneous and less scheduled. You weren't tired, so you didn't have to worry about your appointment in the next day. So maybe you could like splurge and go out for pizza. And when the kids ask to go to the park afterwards, you say sure. Um, Time with kids felt less interrupted. You weren't as fatigued. Supporting aging parents felt more like less urgent and not as something that like felt burdensome. There was more predictability, more emotional space, more energy. Oftentimes, this grief is invisible. Oftentimes, many of my patients don't even notice that it's this grief that they're feeling, but it's truly real. So think about it. Think about what your life was before all of this. You still have the same responsibilities for the kids and aging parents, but then you throw in this cancer diagnosis, and it really does change your perspective on kind of how you see all of the things and all the things you interacted with um, before cancer. I also want to remind you that it is possible to love your children deeply and still grieve the version of parenting that had more energy, more time, and more ease. It's possible to care for aging parents and simultaneously grieve the shift into becoming the one who organizes, who manages, who anticipates their needs, often in ways that feel emotionally unfamiliar or emotionally complex. You want your parents to be there for you. You're the one that has cancer. Sometimes you want your parents to take care of you, but this new role of not only having to kind of take care of your own sick self, but also taking care of your parents, that can feel incredibly complex, that role reversal. It just brings another added layer of fatigue, uncertainty, appointments, emotional weight into our already full lives. It can create a sense of feeling overwhelmed, not just by one thing, but by everything happening at the same time. It's not about doing too little. It's about carrying too much at the same time for an extended period of time. I'm wondering how many of you today feel this way. We know life does not pause for illness. Oftentimes, cancer enters life that does not pause, especially when it comes to work and finances. So, for many of you, I imagine continuing to work is not a choice. You have to work. Your work might be tied to income and health insurance and job security, or your sense of identity or your sense of normalcy. Um, but that doesn't come with the cost that even during treatment, even during caring for these young kids and old aging parents, people still feel pressure to stay engaged at work or return sooner than feel safer. Just to say, like, my work's expecting me back. I don't want to lose my role. I don't want to lose my job. I'm just going to go back. I'm still not feeling myself, but like I feel like I just have to go. I can't even tell you the hundreds of times I've heard that. I think it's also really important to know that uh, recognize that the financial strain is not just logistical. Financial strain can impact emotional well-being, decision making, and even treatment access. This is something to take incredibly seriously. And even when resources do exist, even when you have insurance that covers, even when you have a job that gives leave, that's really wonderful. And it's something certainly to be grateful for. And also the mental load, that silent mental load of planning, tracking, worrying, it can feel constant and exhausting. And this layer, this mental load, it often sits and burrows at the bottom of everything else and rarely gets acknowledged out loud. I recently did a talk for MSK for staff, thinking about how you manage that mental load, like what that mental load looks like. And I think as a society, we need to be talking more about this mental load because we're all carrying it, um, and it's real and it's exhausting. Um, we need to talk about it. So just really appreciating um, the impact. So I imagine now that I've named everything that can feel heavy, and I know I'm sure I missed a million things that you could all add to this list of mental load and exhaustion and all of the overwhelming needs that come with caring for a kid, caring for yourself as a cancer patient, and then also caring for aging parents. Um, but how do we make this feel more balanced? How do we shift from everything else taking up all of the weight and you not taking up any space? Just thinking about how we can make this more balanced, even looking at this, I wonder if it like helps you to just take a deep breath and think about what balance would look like. First, just loosen the pressure on yourself. This slide speaks to, I think, what many patients and caregivers are living with every day. When you're navigating illness alongside caregiving responsibility, the emotional and practical load can shift dramatically. What once felt manageable may now feel overwhelming, and that makes perfect sense. You're carrying a lot. We often hear from patients comparing themselves to how things used to be when they could handle things, how they could show up for others, how they function day to day. That comparison needs to just kind of go out the window because I think what it ends up doing is creating this quiet distress or this sense of falling short. Um, Part of my role as an oncology social worker when I have patients like this sitting in front of me is to reframe these expectations on themselves. This idea of being good enough may need to replace how it used to be. Being good enough isn't necessarily lowering standards. It's about adapting to the current circumstances with self-compassion. And I'm going to talk about this later. It allows space for limitations without equating them to failure because you don't feel good and you have to have takeout 5 times this week. That doesn't mean that you're failing. You're still feeding your family. It's just for the moment shifting how you're thinking about this. Um, and we'll talk more. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how you shift this and how you prioritize your energy, thinking about what's most meaningful and letting go when possible, taking that pressure off yourself. But it's hard. It's not easy. This is a tough one, allowing yourself to be supported. So, for so many of the patients that I've worked with through the years, much of their identity has been rooted in being the reliable one, the one that everyone turns to, the one who manages, who organizes, who holds things together. And then when illness enters, or I don't like it doesn't even enter, it just like comes in like a bolt of lightning, I think, the role can be disrupted and it can feel uncomfortable. And sometimes what I see is it starts to kind of like threaten oneself, a sense of self. Um, Accepting help isn't just a logistical shift, it can be an emotional one too. It may bring up feelings of vulnerability, of guilt, or even a sense of loss of control. I'm curious if any of you have felt that. And what I see is because of this, many of my patients, they minimize their needs or resist support, even when they're clearly overwhelmed. So, thinking about really small, concrete ways in which you could get support without feeling like you're letting go of anything, everything. When you start slowly to accept these smaller forms of support, it can feel a little bit more manageable and less like a complete shift in identity. So, support might look like accepting a meal, a ride, or some childcare help. Letting someone take over an errand. You have to run to Target for a pickup. Let them run to Target for the pickup. And you tell them the number of the spot. Um, they'll tell you the number of the spot they're in and they'll come out and deliver it to their car so that you don't have to do that one extra thing that gives you an extra 10 minutes to just maybe sit by yourself at home. Um, so many of my patients say, no, 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 I don't need anyone to sit with me in chemo. I'm good. I'm good being here alone. And for some, that's good. Some they want that time. It's like the only time that they get time for themselves. But is that really time for yourself? Maybe it's nice to have someone sit with you during chemo and tell jokes or watch a movie together, or letting someone just check in to see that you're to see how you're doing. Oh, hold on. I'm just making sure I'm on the right page. Okay. So letting yourself be supported is we just had protecting even the small parts of yourself. Being mindful that your needs don't disappear because others need you. Rest might look different, and that's okay. So you might need more than the 7 hours of sleep that you're getting. You might need those naps during the day. Give them to yourself. And even brief moments of care for yourself are meaningful. So even if you take that extra 5 minutes in the shower in the morning to let that hot water go down your back, or taking that short walk down the block because you just need a break. You need to take a deep breath in nature. Do that for yourself. It can really help. Thinking about picking the low-hanging fruit. What needs my most, ask yourself, what needs my energy most today? What can be shared or delayed? And what actually requires me? It's helpful to truly think about this every day. It helps shift the muscle in your brain to really start to think differently about prioritizing. Not everything needs to be done by you, also. So, this might be a way in which you give tasks to others. Um, Even a small shift in thinking about how you prioritize, literally thinking about the low hanging fruit, it's why I put the image here. That can be incredibly helpful. Just some things that can help lighten the load. Say yes to help. Thinking about ways to simplify routines, delegate small tasks, and lower the bar when you can. You can't do everything. This is one of my favorite quotes. And I'm going to say it out loud because I think it's powerful. Come to believe that caring for myself is not self-indulgent. Caring for myself is an act of survival. It's so incredibly important and such a powerful quote. We live in a society where we think about, oh, self-care, as like manicures, spas, pedicures, as if that's like this indulgence. And it is, those things cost money. But self-care shouldn't be indulgent. Self-care, this is your life. You should be finding ways to enjoy it each day, finding ways to take care of yourself, truly take care of yourself each day. Sometimes that means like taking a shower. Sometimes that means treating yourself to a nice cup of coffee before everyone wakes up. It might mean writing a note to the teacher and saying, listen, my child could not complete their homework last night, and that is okay. Thinking about small ways in which you could care for yourself every day, it is not self-indulgent. It truly, truly, truly is an act of survival. Because if you're not caring for yourself, you're not going to be able to care for anyone else, and you're not going to be able to enjoy your life. So I just want you to think about um, this shift, this shift about thinking about how you can support yourself in different ways. So thinking about these two questions. What is one small way you could support yourself this week? Write it down, put it in your phone, make a mental note of it. What's one thing you could do for yourself? Could it be ordering your favorite herbal tea, buying yourself a new pair of comfy sweatpants? Could it be taking 5 minutes in a morning where it looks nice outside and the weather's nice to go outside with your cup of coffee and just sip the warmth of the coffee and appreciate that and look outside and look what nature looks like to you. Is it trees? Is it birds? Is it cactus? What does your outside environment look like? Taking 5 minutes to truly appreciate nature can be a really helpful exercise in just supporting yourself and grounding yourself for the day. And then thinking about where might you allow for a little bit more good enough, where something doesn't have to be perfect, where something doesn't have to be exactly the way it was before all of this started happening. Are there things that can be good enough and that's good enough for now? Aside from thinking about the importance of grieving life before cancer, this is the next important thing I want you to think about and take away from this presentation is this idea of self-compassion. If there's one phrase that you remember, think of self-compassion. This is it's not an idea to strive for perfectly. There's no perfect way to do self-compassion, but I like to think of it as a practice to return to help ground you when moments feel really overwhelming. We're going to talk a little bit more about what self-compassion is. Self-compassion is something many people offer easily to others. I imagine you tell many people to be compassionate to themselves. You are kind, you don't judge, but somehow you're judging yourself. It means self-compassion means recognizing when you're having a hard moment and responding with the same care you would give a friend or loved one, rather than being critical of yourself or pushing yourself harder. Pushing yourself harder. I wonder how many of you can relate to that. So self-compassion matters all of the time, but it especially matters now. When you're balancing illness and caregiving and parenting, it's easy to fall into self-criticism, feeling like you should be doing more things. I should have signed up for that PTA opportunity. I'm late sending in that permission slip. Mom really wanted me to go to her cardiac appointment today, and I missed it because I wasn't feeling well. That internal pressure adds to the burden. And thinking about self-compassion can truly help you cope more effectively. I'm just taking a sip of my tea. I also want to be clear what self-compassion is not. Self-compassion does not mean giving up. It's not being selfish, and it's not lowering your values. It's about shifting and adjusting to how you respond to yourself under strain. It's not abandoning what matters most to you. It's just shifting your way of thinking about it. Being kind to yourself isn't necessarily letting things fall apart or not caring it as much. It's just truly adjusting to the way you see yourself in these incredibly difficult situations. It could be a simple shift. How many of you right now could relate to, I should be doing more? There's so much more I should be doing. I'm not doing enough. When you have that phrase, take a picture of this slide. It will be recorded, but take a picture of this. When you say to yourself, I should be doing more, I want you to try and shift that to, I'm doing what I can right now. And then, if any of you have ever had the phrase, I'm falling short, or whatever that looks like to you, whatever that phrase looks like, I want you to replace that or shift that. This is a hard moment. This is just slowly starting to introduce a more compassionate option that really helps to soften that internal pressure. So I think I've kind of emphasized the importance of kind of checking in with yourself throughout this talk. Um, but I really want you to focus on these questions on the left side of your screen. I think it's probably on your left. Are you prioritizing yourself? Am I expecting myself to function as I did before? Ask yourself that. Am I allowing space for my own needs? What are your needs? Sometimes it's even hard to see, to push through all of the layers that are there to who you are and what you truly need. And also, what am I saying to myself when things feel hard? Are you saying, I need to give myself grace? I need to give myself some self-compassion? Or are you saying, I need to do better? This isn't enough. And then thinking about whether or not any of these statements resonate. My needs often come last. I feel guilty taking time for myself. I rarely ask for help. And I feel stretched thin most days. I was going to, in all transparency, remove this slide because I'm like, oh, it seems too redundant from the whole low-hanging fruit. But I don't think I could stress enough the importance of really like starting to shift your brain to rethink priorities. And I like to sometimes think about the brain, especially when we're trying to shift to a new way of thinking as a muscle. Like it takes constant practice and self-talk to do it. Um, and like we've said, everything may feel important. but not everything is equally urgent. And you are the one that gets to choose where your energy goes. So back a few slides, when I was talking about the feeling of loss of control, it's hard to like give things up. You're the one that gets to choose that. You're the one that gets to choose where your energy goes. What's most important to you? How do you do this? It takes a lot of work, a lot of practice. But I want you to ask yourself, what must be done today? What can wait? What can be shared? What can you do with a partner? What can you do with another parent from school? What can you do with a sibling to help out with the parents? And what can let go for now? It's not permanent, just for now. What can you let go of? When you're feeling overwhelmed, I want you to take a deep breath, think about the self compassion, and then start to ask yourselves these questions when you have what feels like priorities that all require your attention. I'm going to do a quick guided self reflection. Um, so if you're in a space that feels comfortable or comfortable enough, just take a moment to pause and bring your mind to a recent moment that felt hard. Maybe even close your eyes. Think about a moment where you felt overwhelmed, pulled in too many directions, or like you weren't able to show up the way you wanted to. Maybe it's something small, or maybe it's something that's been sitting with you. The tone, notice what you said to yourself in that moment. The tone, the words, the expectations you placed on yourself. Now imagine someone you love, a friend, a partner, even your child, coming to you with the exact same situation. They're overwhelmed. They're doing the best. They're struggling. What would you say to them? Would you tell them they're not doing enough? Would you tell them that they should be handling this different or better? Would your voice soften? Would you remind them how much they're carrying or how hard this moment is, how they're doing the best they can? Take a moment to notice that difference and that shift in how you're feeling. And now gently consider what makes it so much easier to offer that kindness to others and so much harder to offer it to yourself. Without forcing anything, see if you can turn just a small part of that same compassion inward. Not all of it, just a small piece, because you are navigating something incredibly difficult and you deserve that same understanding too. I want to give some concrete examples of exactly what self-compassion looks like, um, because I think sometimes it's helpful just to have real concrete ideas. And by no means is this the only ways in which one could practice self-compassion. These are just a list. Um, Resting when your body needs it, even if things feel undone, even if the laundry's not folded, even if there's something for work, can it wait for tomorrow? If your body is telling you it needs rest, rest. Let your energy, not your expectations, guide your day. Accept help during treatment or recovery without guilt. Take the guilt away. People want to help. Think about it. They want to help. If people are offering to help, you've clearly given them something in your relationship and in the time you've spent with that person that's offering from help to help, you've given them something. Let them give something back to you. Speak to yourself with kindness when your body feels different. That's a whole nother topic is body image and cancer treatment. That's not easy either. You're navigating feeling very different in a body that has been impacted by the the cancer treatments. Speak to yourself with kindness. Allow space for fear, sadness, uncertainty without pushing it away. These are really hard feelings to feel. It's important to acknowledge them because they come with cancer. They certainly come with parenting and cancer. and adjust what you can give to your kids or parents and letting that be enough. Maybe when your child says, I really, really want you to play soccer in the yard with me, and you never play soccer in the yard with me anymore, but you're just exhausted. You can't possibly think of what it might look like to put one foot in front of the other and play soccer in the yard with your child. I wonder if it might be easy to say, listen, buddy, mommy's a little tired right now from cancer treatment. Daddy's a little tired right now from cancer treatment or treatment, however you're phrasing it to them. But you know what I would love to do today? I'd love to watch you play soccer in the backyard. And then I'd love to cuddle up in your bed and read an extra book tonight. How does that sound? Is there an alternative way to look at those asks? Thinking about the more concrete day-to-day stuff. Taking the day off after treatment and not feeling like you have to make up for it later. The day after treatment usually stinks. Um, why push through? Take the day off. Allow your body to rest if you can. I also realize there are some organizations and bosses that are just ruthless and don't allow that space. But if you can, do it. Um, Wearing what feels comfortable instead of what you should wear. Maybe get things with like an elastic waistband, just sweaters that feel comfy, sneakers, like where would you don't need to feel uncomfortable in your body on top of all these other things that are going on with you. It's okay to say no to visits or plans when you don't have the energy. Letting someone else come to appointments to take notes. And I imagine for those of you who are fastidious and really truly appreciate the detail of what is being said in doctor's appointments, I understand that need to kind of let go. But bring someone you trust, someone you truly feel is going to take the right notes so you could listen and relax and talk to the doctor and they can take the notes for you. I want you to give yourself compassion that you might not have the right words or the kids for your parents or your kids, and that's okay. You might snap, you might yell. Forgive yourself for that. Take a deep breath and then go back and talk to your kids and say, listen, I know that sounded cranky. I'm so sorry mommy yelled. And also, I was feeling kind of tired myself. But give yourself that forgiveness and that kindness and that self-compassion when you lose it, because you're going to lose it in this. It's just inevitable. This is hard. It's going to test your patience. And saying to yourself, I'm doing the best I can right now. Incredibly important. I wonder if it's possible to think to yourself, what if nothing needs fixing right now? Not everything necessarily needs to be improved this moment. Excuse me. Not every feeling needs to be solved. You're allowed to pause without earning it. And you're allowed to be good enough in caregiving, parenting, and surviving your own illness. Thinking about self-compassion is not about doing less, it's suffering less alone. I also want to bring this idea of strength into the situation. Um, I think for the most part, oftentimes strength is culturally framed as pushing through, staying steady, or doing everything independently. But in the context of illness and caregiving and chronic stress, that definition becomes exhausting and quite frankly, unrealistic. Um, if we think of this like different take on strengths, um, strength can be understood as noticing when you're depleted, being aware of your own limits and recognizing what is needed, where you need help. Strength's allowing support before you reach the point of collapsing. It's the ability to accept help early, even when it feels uncomfortable or unfamiliar. It's also choosing to speak to yourself with less judgment than the world provides. Interrupting your critical internal voice, saying, stop that. I'm not going to be critical of myself. I'm going to show myself that self compassion. Give yourself, instead of that judgment, give yourself something more humane, more kind, more balanced. And at its core, shifting this idea of strength is a reminder that struggling in the context of illness and all of these other responsibilities is not a personal failure. You are not failing. You're carrying multiple roles, responsibilities, and emotional demands that no single person was meant to hold alone. when you're caring for children, supporting aging parents, and managing your own health, that kindness toward yourself isn't extra. It's part of how you keep going. Allowing kindness for yourself, truly, it's not optional. And it's also not about doing any of these things completely perfectly. It really is about treating yourself with enough care so you can keep going. If you keep going at a rate where you're being critical of yourself, where you're managing everything on your own, at some point, you're going to just collapse and be exhausted. Um, and that's not good for you, and it's not good for the people that you're caring for. As we end, I'm going to ask you again just to close your eyes and take a deep breath. I'm going to do it with you. I want to acknowledge something that is often not said out loud in spaces like this. What you're carrying is not just stress or responsibility. It's uncertainty, it's fear, it's love, it's exhaustion, and at times grief for how life used to feel. And you're carrying all of that while still showing up for appointments, for children, for parents, for every single person that depends on you. There's something deeply important in that, and also something deeply heavy. I want to say this clearly to you. There is no version of you that was meant to carry all of this without impact. If you notice that you are tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix, or stretched in a way that no amount of organizing helps, or emotionally flat in ways that worry you, that is not a failure. That is load. And in the middle of that load, self-compassion is not about feeling better. It's about no longer turning on yourself while you're already hurting. So just for a moment, I want to offer this possibility to sit with. What if the part of you that is exhausted or scared or overwhelmed is not a problem to solve, but a part of you that deserves understanding? And if it feels difficult to believe, that makes sense because many of you have had to be strong for a really hard time, long time. And that's source of strength that our society tends to put on people and define. But strength is not only what you carry, it's also what you stop carrying alone. And as you leave here, you don't have to change anything all at once. But I hope you might take this one thing with you. You are not only the one who holds everything together. You are also someone who deserves care while you're doing it. And just before you go, and before we go to question and answers, I want you to take what felt useful today and leave what doesn't fit. If nothing I said fit today, throw it out in the garbage. Say, forget it. Like this was not helpful. And it might not be. You might not be in the space to hear any of this, or maybe it didn't even fit well with you. That's okay. This is for you. So if you're really feeling like none of what I said was good, give yourself permission to throw it out. Picture throwing it out in the garbage. Um, Remember that there's no expectation to fix anything right now. Some of this is just things to think about. Notice what it feels like to simply just be in this moment right now, even briefly. And if anything surfaced today that felt difficult, that felt hard, I imagine it did, it's okay to carry it gently and not alone. Thank you. I also want to, I was going to put together a resource page of just like various different resources throughout the US that provide like support for people going through cancer. However, the list would be too long and it's not, I often think it's better to connect to the resources that are closer to where you live. So what I'm going to encourage you all to do is if you're being treated at a cancer center, ask to speak to the social worker. ask to speak to the oncology social worker. We have a plethora of resources for you, and oftentimes have a list of resources that are very local, and specific to who you are as a person, the type of cancer you're going through. So certainly ask your doctor to be connected to that oncology social worker. You can also, um, if you go onto the organization that I'm currently a member of, Association of Oncology Social Workers, oftentimes we can connect you with a social worker in your state, if you have trouble navigating that. So I will stop sharing and I will open it up to questions.
Thank you, Meredith. That was really fabulous. Um, we have someone in the chat saying, "Thank you so much for acknowledging something that is not talked about at all. It means a lot. It helps me to feel less alone." One thing I'll add, some of us have parents who have passed or who have dementia and cannot be of support to us at all, even
Yeah,
emotionally. And that's so true.
that is so true. And that's, I imagine it's like reliving that grief all over again because when you're going through something hard. I think I mentioned this in one of the slides and earlier that sometimes we expect like maybe our parents will be there for us like we were when we were a kid. And when our parents can't be there or they're not here physically, that's incredibly hard. And oftentimes you kind of go through that grief again of missing them and grieving them. Not that the grief goes away ever, but that it resurfaces in a different way and you start to feel it differently. So thank you so much for bringing that and saying that. And truly, my heart goes out to all of you who have lost a parent, or have parents that aren't able to help and parents that you really have to help out with more.
Thanks, Meredith. I'm actually not seeing any other questions. And I always interpret that as like, you covered it, man. You go, girl. I felt like your presentation was very thorough. And it really did, I think, affirm a lot of different experiences and give name to something that often isn't named. Even just naming the grief, I think is very powerful. So thank you for that. Really appreciate you being here. I'm getting lots of notes about thank you for your presentation, amazing presentation. I will agree. To everyone who's still on, I will send out a recording of this. Feel free to share. It'll also live on our website. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Feel free to email us at Bright Spot Network. Happy to help connect you to resources. So, again, thank you, Meredith, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you all for coming today. Truly.